Alright guys, welcome to the pattern making and grading using CLO3D and Alvenon series. I'm going to try to break it down for you with this little block pattern of a dress. Basically, I will be using the Alvenon form. I feel that it is the best form to portray balance and to use for pattern making. So this is the little bit of a view of the pattern. So in this series, I'm going to explore a little bit about pattern making in CLO and how to get a really good pattern out of your CLO projects. So again, we're going to start here with this basic pattern and with our Alvenon form. And basically this pattern is not 100% fit correct, but we're going to go through that and we're going to look at some of the things that are key factors in getting a good pattern. Using the CLO materials and using the CLO pattern making tools. So let's start with a look at the transparency in your 2D window. If you change your avatar's fabric to transparent, you'll be able to see a little bit better on how close your pattern is to the body. Now this is different from using the fit strain maps. This is actually just about the pattern. This is not really about the fit just yet, because now with this you're able to see that maybe you have too much shoulder slope. That might not show up on your fit map. Maybe your armhole's a little bit too high. That also may not show up on your fit map. The fit map is basically not about pattern as much as it is about wearability, where if you're using your transparency, you can see how far away from the body you have, and that is called ease. So you can see a little bit more of the ease on the sleeve and the ease on the skirt, but when you get to the hips, it's a little bit less of an ease. I can also see that my the reason I use Alvenon forms is because I can see that my placement and my seams might not be aligned. So that might be something that I want to change going forward. I might want to just make sure that that's at the true waist and make a little bit of an adjustment to my patterns. For that reason is why I use the Alvenon forms, because the body landmarks are visible. There are other products that I will talk about in a later video that can give you the same thing, but that is at a later video. Right now I can check the shoulder seams. I can check and see where my neckline is meeting with the body landmarks. I can also see how much slope I have, how much ease, and where it is distributed on the pattern. This might not also show in your seam shapes or your pattern shapes or your stress map. So this little point that I do personally is to kind of see where the excess of fabric is, or where there needs to be more fabric allotted for just a nice easy fitting pattern. So now this pattern is a little tight. I already know that, and I know where it is, and we're going to fix that in part of the later videos. But right now I'm going to show you one of the things that I do to check to see if all my seams are aligned, if all my measurements match, and how I can improve on some of the shapes of the pattern as it looks like on the form. Now this whole series is going to go through taking this pattern to be a production ready pattern. So right now this is just the first step of your eyeballing your pattern to see where are some of the things that you want to change. Maybe you made this from a block, maybe you got the pattern and you made some movements that actually throw off the fit and balance of the pattern. So this is a little bit of a way to get back to that. So one of the key things that I notice a lot of people don't use, and if you are using them, you can put it in the chat and tell me that, hey, I use this all the time. That's be really great for everybody to see. So there are a few things looking at this pattern. Now I have all of my line highlighted and I can see all of my grade points, which are the bigger yellow dots. But there's also one thing that I want to show you that can help me with this pattern's measurements. Right now, your particle distance is stretching at your seams, and that's okay for visual, you can get it. But if you want to have the true look of what the seams look like as they're matched, I turn on my seam taping, and I turn that seam taping all the way down to 1, because that's going to be like a tight seam, like if I actually sewed it together with a tight seam. So I usually put that on 1 if I want to go ahead and miraculously see what the actual pattern looks like when draped, where the seams don't have that seam allowance ease in the fabric. So right now we're going to redrape this, and we're going to see where all my trouble spots are. And you might want to do this a couple of times before you actually go and look at the pattern seams and see what's going on. So now I can see I have something going on with the back sleeve, something going on with the center panel and the hip at the back. I can also see that my seams are really stressed out and pulling in certain areas. Now I chose this pattern on purpose, so do not try to hate me in the in the chat, because yeah, I chose this on purpose. So these are some of the things you might want to see in your own personal patterns, and you might want to go ahead and fix before you do your grading and before you do all of your other pattern finishing. So again, I'm going to go to my transparent layer in the 3D window, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I move things around, like, does that help, or what do I really want to do at this point? Basically, at this point, I want to go ahead and fix this pattern. I want to go ahead and find out the next part that I want to show you. So now that my seams are tightened up and I can see where everything is pulling, and by the way, I am using a lightweight muslin for my drape default fabric. Okay, for this little trick, I'm going to click on the sewing machine in my 2D window, and this is for my check pattern window. Now this will help me to check all of the sewing lengths, and it will show up if your lengths do not match between your pieces. That's why you get these little red lines. So these little red lines are showing me that, hey, there's something wrong with your back sleeve and your armhole. There's something wrong with the waist. All of these measurements are not aligned together. So this is the work that needs to be done. And we need to go ahead and start to, I call it truing up the pattern, because this is what I would do on a flat pattern or a pattern making table. I would actually go through and make sure that my front and back, left and right, that everything was symmetrically aligned. So I'm going to go through that now, and I'm just going to put a little bit of music on for you guys to go ahead and watch. This is going to be 4 times speed, so if you need to slow it down just to see what I do, then you are able to do that. But I'm going to go stitch by stitch, line by line, and make adjustments, and we'll see what the final pattern looks like. But before we do that, there are a few things that I want to talk to you about when looking at these seams. You'll see that right now, because these were draped separately, the darts are not aligned, and the direction of the darts, they also influence the drape of the pattern. So right now I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that my top and bottom actually match first. This means my dart legs or my dart opening will have to also match. So this is one of the key things with balancing your pattern and balancing all of your seams, is to make sure your darts also match and that your widths also match to your body spec. So let's go ahead and just keep on going with this, and we're going to go and fix all these seams. All right. Okay, it looks like we got all of our lines together. I have to tell you guys that this is sped up because I want to say that that took about maybe 30 minutes. I don't want to mislead you guys and think that this is a fast process. But now we've got all our seams matched, and you know, it is a little daunting, but if you need this pattern to go to production, then I would do the same thing. So now we've resewn everything, so now it's time for the big reveal. And see, I didn't take off the seam allowance, the seam taping. So let's see the difference in our pattern after we fixed it. Let's simulate and wait for the big reveal. So let's see, did some of those things go away? Yes, the sleeve looks a little bit better. I think we can still fix some of the armhole at the back and some of the sleeve cap, just to align that a little bit better. But let's go ahead and manipulate our pattern because we didn't redrape it. So this is just some residual drag lines, and let's see if we can get as much as we can get out. It does look I want to say 80% better, but I know the flaws in the pattern, so we're going to talk about that in another video. So right here, this basically happens when your distance between your shoulder line and your back waist is too long. So that is something that I usually have to fix. And it has to do with the forward shoulder, and it has to do with the balance at the armhole. Lots of people think that it's at the waist, but it is actually at the upper part of the garment, while you get that little ripple right underneath the armhole at the back. So let's go ahead and look a little bit further into this, but this is just the step one of getting all of your seams to match and lay nicely. We will redrape this and revisit some of the areas that are still a little bit tricky in a later video. Okay, thanks so much. Okay, it doesn't stop here. Like I said, guys, this is a daunting process. So I am having to go back and check on that back sleeve and check on my sleeve balance and my armhole balance. Once you go ahead and move something, it's important to keep your seam line checker on. That can stay on the whole time while you're moving stuff, so you can kind of see what's happening again. But once you move it and you redrape, you're going to notice that you're going to get that line again, and you're going to have to go a couple steps back once you start fixing this. This is not a quick fix. This is not auto grading. This is not auto sewing. This is actually knowing what you want to happen in your pattern. And that's it, guys. Now I'm done.